What are the types of parts that come your way and you're just not this again?
Nerds, tech nerd, computer nerd, guy at the IT company, gay friend, nerdy gay friend, best friend,
hothead, drug addict, crackhead.
Hi, and welcome to Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter, comedy actors. I am joined today by Ted Danson of Mr. Mayor, Ed Helms of Rutherford Falls, Ben Platt of The Politician, Lamorne Morris of Woke, Pete Davidson of Saturday Night Live, and Chris Redd of Kenan and Saturday Night Live. Thank you all for being here. All right, we're gonna start with an icebreaker for all of you. If a fan is coming at you, what is he or she most likely to say or do? What are you typically known for? What does it look like?
They trying to fuck. No, I'm joking.
Great start. Love it.
That's an icebreaker.
No, people come up to me all the time and ask me about. I was on a show called New Girl, and they ask me constantly about my cat on the show. Yeah, how's Ferguson? He's dead, but they constantly. Yeah, I'm fine.
I would say a large number of people come up to me all the time and ask me to tell Pete Davidson something.
What do they want to communicate?
Like I love you. Can you marry me? Letters, but through me. Like I don't have stuff to do. You know.
Pete, does he tell you does he deliver all the messages?
No, of course not.
I delivered like one or two, like our very first year working together, and then I realized how many it was, and I was like, I'm done.
I usually just run away because I'm terrified of life and people. I get people just scream "Nard dog" at me from very far away, and like all the way across airport terminals, or
and your response is
I oftentimes I'll just do that awkward thing where I pretend like I didn't hear it, but then like 30 people suddenly look at you and they're like, and then they start shouting "Nard dog," and I don't know, it's just awkward. There's not a lot of
fair enough.
I get a lot of people coming up and saying, my grandmother loved watching you on Cheers. I'll say, hold on, let me turn on my hearing aids. Okay, say again.
What about you, Ben?
For the record, I also watched you on Cheers, so. But usually it's one of two things. It's either like somebody asking me to do like a magic trick, something having to do with Pitch Perfect, or else it's somebody who had like a very cathartic Evan Hansen related experience who immediately starts to cry and ask me about like mental health and things that I have no real answers for, something like that.
How do you respond to both camps?
To Pitch Perfect, I have like one little sleight of hand thing that I can do, but only if I have this little like scarfy thing with me. And to Dear Evan Hansen, I just try to be like a good listener. I feel like I sort of weirdly became like a like mental health expert in theory because of that show. And I, obviously like all of us, I'm still figuring out, my own shit. So I try to just be a nice receiver and hear the experience and not give any unsolicited or, advice that I'm not qualified to give, kind of thing.
Have you tried doing the sleight of hand for those people?
I will now.
I love it. All right, Ted, I'm going to start with you. You have played a lot of different types of characters at this point in your career. I think you've played smart, you've played meathead, you've played rich, you've played evil, you've even played Ted Danson. Where are you sort of happiest, most at ease as an actor?
The slow, dumb joke. The best. All the right. I worked for Mike Schur. We were talking earlier, and it was like paragraphs of the most heightened Shakespearean language, and it drove me nuts because I had to work so hard for it. I like doing. This is obvious, but I like doing drama that's funny, and I like funny that has a source of, either pain or sadness or some human frailty that's genuine at the core of it.
How about the rest of you. I remember we had Hugh Grant on a roundtable a few years ago, and he said, no one wants to be the good guy. It's harder and arguably less fun. Do you guys agree, disagree? Where are you sort of at ease? Some of
That
you.
Hugh Grant is full of shit. No, I don't know.
Oh,
No,
don't start this beef again.
I have no.
I don't want to go down this road.
He's been playing this beef all week, man.
Which one is Hugh Grant? That's the German guy.
I hope not.
You'll cut that out too, right? Real
Oh.
Hugh Grant beef. Oh man.
Playing crazy, man. I like playing the crazy characters. There's more interesting. I grew up around a lot of crazy people. I have a huge family, like over 200 people, and there's, we got everything from normal schoolgoers to crack kids. We got it all, and it's just fun to find like different ways to play crazy or play confident dumb. It's like where I love to live it. I love a
Something dumb.
dumb person. Yeah, just very stupid, but like I believe in every word.
Oh yeah, your bit on the SNL sketch with the drug deal, the guy trying to take over. That's who that is. Right? That's trying to run an operation, you can't do it.
It wants all the power with no knowledge of how to do anything. You know what I mean? Like that's just so much fun to me to play. I love that.
I love playing high. I love playing someone who's not supposed to be high status. He's clearly a low status person, but like he's trying to up that status for himself in that scene or as a character. And he doesn't belong in that space. That to me is the most fun to play.
What about you, Ben? You went from doing Evan Hansen every night into doing the politician. These are obviously very different types of characters. Do you find yourself more at ease in one type versus the other? And if so, why?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of where I fall most naturally is the more kind of wallflower, anxious, sort of like self-deprecating kind of a guy, which I think is definitely like more of the comfort zone. But because I did spend so long doing that show and doing Pitch Perfect before that and Book of Mormon before that, all of whom are sort of iterations of that same guy, I found that recently I've really enjoyed playing people with a bit more aggression and like a little bit more hubris and confidence, like Peyton on Politician, just to sort of get to do something that I don't do in my life. Whereas the sort of nerdier guys are much closer to who I actually am.
What about you, Ed? You obviously, there are traces of characters you've played before in this character. I think you've described it some version of the sort of earnest, well-intentioned guy who has some serious blind spots. Why do you think you sort of gravitate to these roles? And in this case, it's one that you created.
Yeah, I think it's because I feel so connected to that. Like, it's so much of what I loved about playing Andy Bernard is that he just wanted so badly to do the right thing and sort of be the best version of himself, but he had so many hurdles and just like got in his own way all the time. And in a way, like he's the very heightened expression of how I feel a lot. And in other words, I feel sort of similar to Andy Bernard, but just with better editing and coping skills. And I think Nathan Rutherford in Rutherford Falls is a little bit of a slightly more advanced, more nuanced version of that. That's a little bit more complex, just because it's a more complex story, and that's what. So it is definitely a comfort zone for me to play those kinds of characters. But I also, I don't know, I also have, I have an inner Don Knotts that is always trying to get out. That is always ruining takes. And directors are always like, okay, let's pull it back maybe for another one. But I just love, being a really aggressively wrong character who's with some physical wackiness. I don't know.
I love that. What about you, Pete? When you're working with the writers, what are the types of things that come at you and you say, don't think so? And what are the ones that excite you?
Well, so few come my way that I have to do them.
Is that how Cuomo came to be?
Yeah, I don't really have much of the thing about SNL is you really don't have much of a say. It's kind of just like, hey, this is what you're gonna do this week, and you're like, oh, cool. So I like the randomness of it, and I usually play very dumb characters, so it's very easy for me. But yeah, that's all.
Fair enough. I am curious, how much of yourselves do you like to sort of see in these parts that you play?
Do I see in myself in parts I play?
In any, yeah. I mean, this is for anyone who wants it, but we can start with you. Yeah. How much?
Oh, my bad. I thought it was.
No, please, let's do it.
Go speak, man. Say it. Say what you got to say.
Say it.
Wait,
I'm here for it.
Don't run.
Exactly.
I play this. I have one character in my set. Oop, they're coming for me. I have one character that I've done in like 7 years on the show, which shows how how fucking great I am. It's called. His name's Chad, and he's very dumb, and every response is just okay. And I see a lot of myself in Chad because I have very little to say.
I love Chad because he's so positive. Like he's just he's so game and like up for anything. I think he's aspirational.
He's a good guy. He means well.
Pete, I just have to jump in and say I love funny, which you are, but you've got an edge of danger in you that I find fantastic to watch. To be no, I'm gonna laugh, but also be a little nervous. To me, it's like I wish I had that because I'm your run-of-the-mill nice actor. You're dangerous, and I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Watching you, yeah.
Thank you so much. They don't pay the dangerous.
Are you complaining about your pay now?
Lamorne, I wanted to turn to you. You obviously, you referenced New Girl earlier. You spent 7 years on that show, which was sort of pure fun. And you've said when it ended, you wanted to sort of transition and be part of something, and I'm quoting you here, that meant something. I'm hoping you can sort of expand on what you meant by that and how you found that in Woke.
Well, New Girl it was just silly. That's what it was. I mean, it was cool. It was fun. It was, there are a lot of there's a few different subject matters that we would touch on, but there's only so much you can do in a quick 28-minute show, 22-minute show, and then it would vary from episode to episode. So we would touch on little things here and there. I got lucky enough to write an episode about my character is a police officer on the show. And when the incident in Ferguson happened, I wrote an episode about that because I had a cat on the show named Ferguson, a black dude who plays a police officer. And I was getting all these tweets like, yo, how does it feel to play? How does it feel to play a black cop with a cat named Ferguson? And I'd be like, that's clever as shit, but like, stop asking me that, And so I wanted to address it. And so I wrote an episode about it, and then I wanted to get more mileage out of that, but you can't really on such a happy show. So when I was done with the show, I wanted to do something that kind of felt more authentic to maybe some of the things that I had been through in my real life, and some of the things that friends of mine had been through, and reading a lot of scripts, and Woke came along, and it was based on a true story, and it's about a guy who is a nerdy black dude who doesn't think racism is an issue. Like, he doesn't see it. He just wants to draw cartoons and become successful and keep his head down. And then he can't avoid it. Living in San Francisco, what happens, all these microaggressions and these things. And he needs to express himself. The police, they rough him up a little bit. He has a bit of PTSD and he starts seeing things. Now, the show is absurd and it's really funny. But there are moments of that show which you're not laughing. You're not laughing at, because if you're a human being, you can identify with a lot of the shit that we're talking about. So that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of something more with more stakes, with more weight to it, but also can poke fun of it. I mean, I have a racist marker that is played by JB Smoove. You know what I mean? So how fucking ridiculous can you get?
And the Emmy goes to.
But your character on the show laments, and again, I'm gonna quote him. Why is it that us people of color are always having to stand for something or say something in our work? Obviously, he's a cartoonist. You are not. You are an artist.
Right.
How have you felt that same pressure? And assuming so, what has that sort of personal navigation looked like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a responsibility if you choose it. Black is not a monolith. I sometimes feel like we feel like we all got to jump on the thing. You know what I mean? If you don't want to, if you don't feel that calling, or you don't feel activated to say something, or if you see some injustice happening, or and if you have this loud voice, you don't have to say anything if that's not who you are. You know what I mean? So me, myself personally, I wasn't that guy at all. I didn't know enough, didn't read enough. I just wanted to like book a commercial and book a job and, be taken seriously as an actor. And then you start to see people listen to you. And again, your neighbor is going through something. And if you have a platform to say something about it, obviously with some sort of intelligence behind it and some resources behind it, you should. I think you should. So, this show is speaking on exactly that. This guy, initially, he was like, I don't want to be the guy who everyone's leaning on to speak up and say something. And I think that's fair for a lot of folks. But if you feel moved to say something, you should. And if you don't know shit, I think that could be the problem too. You could be putting a bunch of bullshit out there and information that's just false. Just like Ben was talking about earlier about speaking on, you don't want to talk about mental health to folks. You might have somebody running into traffic. You don't want to do that, So, yeah.
Can anyone else relate to that on any level? You guys you have these platforms, and there sometimes is this pressure to sort of use them to say something, to stand for something.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. I think just being Black in America on TV just forces you kind of to relate to that. I've always stood up and protested injustices, but in my work, especially my stand-up, I like to speak a lot on some of that stuff. But I also feel like part of our freedom is to be able to just create without having to represent something like every single time you do it. So it's just walking that line of like representing your people and speaking to your culture, but also having the freedom to just create without being bound to an injustice every single time. Because sometimes I just got a dick joke, fam. Like, and I ain't got that went down. Like, it's just what's on my mind, what I want to joke about right now. So it's kind of that's a part of that's a part of the fight. You know what I mean? In being able to. In having this voice is being able to balance that, but it's a part of the job, I think.
Little confusing in that not confusing, but I will say that I play a billionaire, about as white as you can get and as old as you can get politician. So I guess I'm doing my part by pointing out how wrong that is. But here's something I don't know, maybe being white, my lessons are way different, but I know that I have always walked around in the up until about 2 or 3 years ago with my heart is pure, and my intentions are good. And I use that as an excuse maybe to not step out, to not take a look at, intentions don't matter, because you've offended or saddened or something, people by your behavior or your lack of whatever. So, yeah, I haven't had the chance to reflect that in work, but I appreciate the conversation.
When you started, I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought you were about to go full Liam Neeson for a second.
Go what?
Full Liam Neeson. Like when you first started, I was like, oh no, he's not about to say he did something crazy. Is he? Like, oh, good. Oh, okay, good.
I think this is the forum.
I think so.
you're
You
next.
just air it all here. Let's go. Ted, The Good Place is, wrapped, and you very quickly sort of jumped into this next show. Was there any sort of thought given to, want to take some time off before jumping right in, and truly at this point, how are the choices different? And this is for everyone at this sort of stage of your collective careers.
My first paranoid thought is, oh, you think I should take a break, and let people breathe a little before.
Not what I
Why
said.
didn't you give America
Yeah.
a break, Ted? We
We needed a break.
I love to work. I love funny. I love being silly. I love studios. I love actors. I just really love my life in this business. Really love it. So I don't particularly want to just sit back. I could pick a different, perhaps next time out, I will pick something that's more Fargo-esque than, Cheers or something. But the opportunity to work with Tina Fey and Robert Carlock came along, and it was just for me a no-brainer because it was this different strain of comedy that I hadn't experienced yet. I don't know the Saturday Night Live. I haven't experienced this as an actor. So I really, and I think at this point in I'm pretty much from Damages on, you notice I'm slipping my career in, pretty much from Damages on, I realized the important thing was to find the smartest people in the room and then ask very nicely if you can be part of what they're doing. So, I keep trying to find the smartest people in the room, and, Tina and Robert certainly.
Would you say you want to be on Woke? Be on Woke season 2? Is that good?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. I mean, we can bring you on easily.
Yeah. What network are you?
Hulu.
Oh, that's not even a network.
I know.
I can do it.
100%. It doesn't count.
Come on down and host SNL right before it comes out. You know what I'm saying? Just come on down and host.
Scariest thing on the planet. I would never do it again. I did it once years ago, and it was just no. You guys are comedy commandos, and you have a crap load of youth and adrenaline. That just scares the crap out of me.
Pete, I've heard you say recently that this season has been a favorite, if not the favorite of yours. That was not something you were sort of saying, a year ago about your sort of comfort level at the show. What's changed? What's made you feel so sort of comfortable and ease?
I think I was in a really different place like a year or two ago. And, I'm not exactly proud of how I handled or was handling things a few years ago. And, looking back on it, it's like, you're like, oh, come on, dude. But luckily a pandemic happened, and I got kicked in the balls and had to sit with all of my immature, irrational decisions. And I was so happy when they said that SNL was gonna come back because I was just literally sitting in a room with my own thoughts, and I was feeling really bad. And I felt really lucky, and I was really excited just to work and see people. And I kind of had a different outlook for this season and kind of moving forward. Yeah, just been able to have a lot of fun, and just been really appreciative. Not working at all really sucks. So I was just really happy to get back to work.
Guys, many of you were working during the pandemic, delivering comedy during what was a pretty bleak time. Some of you had audiences that were not there. Talk to me about what that experience was like. Cathartic, challenging. How'd you guys feel?
I shot the Evan Hansen adaptation during COVID in the fall of last year. So we were sort of one of the more maiden voyages in terms of sort of a large film trying to go during this time. And while obviously that is far from a comedy, it certainly took a lot of the warmth and like camaraderie out of the experience and added this layer of, I think, fire under everybody's butts to feel like if we're going to go out on this limb and go through all of this testing and just sort of put ourselves through this sort of risk, we all have to really believe in what it is we're making. And I think, as you know, as sad as it was not to be able to, you know, touch the people I was working with or see my half of my director's face like ever, it was also really kind of a nice, I don't know, motivation to make it great and to make it worth it, to have everybody upend themselves from their families and put themselves on the line. And thankfully, obviously, all of the protocols were very overly safe even at that point, because again, we were pretty early on and it was before we were figuring out exactly what worked and what didn't. So it was sort of like everything in the kitchen sink to make sure that everybody was safe. So I'm definitely looking forward to these things slowly falling away. And I wouldn't necessarily say there's anything I preferred about the process of doing it under these circumstances, but I think there were things to mine, most especially that feeling of like, there has to be a real purpose for us to be here. And thankfully, obviously, Evan Hansen is a very sort of isolated and lonely character. And the story is somewhat gray in that way already. So thankfully, it sort of lent itself to that. But for people like, you know, Chris and Pete, who are having to, you know, make crowds of people laugh and go out on that sort of a comedic limb during this time, that is something I would imagine is very challenging, at least at the beginning when you're sort of getting your footing again. I would imagine that was a really weird feeling.
What do you think, Chris?
It was definitely weird. At first it was nice because it was like we were out the house, you know what I mean, and it was like an outlet. I had started a fund for injustice for the protesters, and I had did all the stuff on the ground that I could do, and then I was like, I needed an outlet because there was no stand up, and it was the longest I had ever sat down in my career of comedy. So it was good to just be out, and we had kind of more space a little bit, but almost too much because we weren't able to kind of be around each other as much, and there was like all those masks, so it kind of made it hard. And we do miss those 200 people that can't sit in those stands every Saturday. But it was cathartic. It was a nice outlet to be able to have, you know, to create with your friends again and like show up on a Saturday and see a crowd of people and see those nurses and make them laugh, and knowing that they have to go back to work and maybe off of no sleep. And it was just, it just carried me through. I had started therapy in the pandemic, so I've never even met my therapist in real life yet. It's all Zoom. So being able to work through my things and go and put that stuff to use in a comedic way that I've always kind of used comedy for, it was fun. I mean, it's hard, and I would hope to never do it again like that. But
still time, my friends. There's still time.
It really is. I think as we got closer though, and it just made me. It raised a lot of respect for everybody I worked with, because it was truly a fight every week to make that show happen.
Ed, you sounded like you were about to say something.
Yeah, and it's kind of what Chris just said, which is that, you know, our show was scheduled to start the week of lockdown, so we got punted, and we didn't know if it was going to happen or not, and then a couple of months later, the protocols got sort of figured out and locked in, and we were able to start, which was really, really exciting and cool. So strange and so different and so hard in so many ways. But I think Ben was touching on this too. Like the hurdles made it really enhanced the cohesion of our crew in a way that was kind of beautiful. Like it was so much more complicated to show up to work every day and to get get tested and go through all the motions. Everybody's wearing masks. It's weird. But when you start making something that still feels funny and still feels good, there was a sense of like, there was like a team spirit. And there's always a team spirit on a good crew. But like, I think it was especially heightened in this circumstance just because everyone felt lucky to be working and sort of respectful of each other's effort to kind of step up and meet all these extra protocols. And, we had a lot of production. Our production really shrank because of COVID. We had a lot of kind of big plans to shoot in different locations and on both coasts. And because of COVID, we really just almost everything was on studio lots. And that also had some surprising benefits. That being that contained, it allowed us to be more creative and spontaneous in those spaces. Whereas when you're taking a whole crew across the country, like, you got to have everything figured out and locked down. There were just the locations that we used on back lots allowed us to position things differently. There were all kinds of weird little ways that the limitations turned out to be opportunities. I always think of there's a great quote by Orson Welles, I think, that the absence of limitations is the enemy of art. And I'm just constantly reminded of that. Like, every time I feel like something's a burden or is too much to deal with, like, all of a sudden all these cool new ideas and fixes and opportunities bubble up. Saturday Night Live is the living example of that. Like, the whole show comes together in a week. It's all limitations, and yet it's like explosively brilliant every week. So,
want to shift gears a little bit and talk about these sort of careers and the navigation you guys do. Ed, I've heard you tell a story about, I think this must have been sort of just post Hangover, how you had a conversation with your agent and said you sort of wish there was some sort of training program for all of this. Maybe you could get together with, a big star, have brunch, once a month and get some advice about how to sort of handle success, fame, next choices, etc. First off, do I have the concept right? Am I described?
More or less.
More or less? Okay. I'm curious, what do you sort of wish you knew, and how would it have changed the experience for you? And I'm going to open this up, so start thinking, everyone.
Yeah, I think early on, like, I sort of had this gradual build of fame or celebrity, if you will, until the Hangover. And then it just became this astronomical thing that was so unfamiliar and in many ways scary. And so, yeah, I don't remember that conversation, but I've often reflected on how I wish there was like a mentorship program for celebrities, or some way that, like, to just help younger actors navigate some of these circumstances. There's just so much unexpected, and the industry is set up in a way that's just sort of like sink or swim. Like, you either get it, you either know how to do it, or you don't, and get out of the way. And I guess the thing that I wish I had just sort of understood more early on, and this is a little hacky to say, but it's true, is just to, like, relax and just enjoy some of it and not panic so much about, I think when you have a big sort of step up in opportunity, there's a fear that comes with it in terms of making the right choices. And I maybe a little overwhelmed by that for a period, and it's not worth it. You gotta pull back and take the time you need, if you need it, to kind of recenter. And we're so lucky to be in these positions, and it's like Ted was saying, it's so fun what we get to do. We get to do this. It's insane. It's ridiculous.
What does it look like from the inside? I mean, as you mentioned, there was the Daily Show, there was The Office, and then there was the Hangover. Like, in what ways did that feel different from the inside, where there was just, phone calls off the, well, yes. We're seeing a lot of money signs. Got it. Yes. That's certainly.
Ferraris. Come on, Ed. No.
Yeah. I mean, some people, I think, are really equipped to just slide right into that really easily. And for some reason, I grappled with a lot of anxiety moving into that. And it's a lot of the stuff off camera.
What was the fear?
It's a lot of the social stuff. Like, you know, the suddenly you're invited to things that are like overwhelming. You're like, people don't realize celebrities also get starstruck and feel awkward at times. I certainly still do sometimes. But then it's dealing with, like, you know, your agents are suddenly coming at you with things that are exciting, but maybe there's competing things, or maybe there's like, oh, if you do this, you can't do that. And then they're like, but I'm friends with that person. Or, I think they're brilliant. I want to work with that person. Well, you can't work. I mean, sure, you can do it, but you're going to blow this and whatever. It's just like, wow. I don't know if you guys can relate. I feel much more sort of like I have much better tools now, and I'm just much more, maybe I'm just more chill as a person, but there was definitely a period there where I was like, I want a mentor. I want somebody to.
But I think that's everybody's journey though too, because you have to learn yourself. You know, actors, you know, from school I went to, or just people that I might meet on the street that say they want to get into this business, you know, and how do you handle it and how do you start? And I always just tell them, I say, start by taking an acting class, and then the rest is up to you. You've got to figure out your own journey to navigate. Like, even if you had a mentor, they can only tell you but so much. You know, they could, they could show you some of the pitfalls for sure, but you're gonna walk through them anyway. Like, and that's the best possible way to learn, in my opinion, because I've made a million mistakes, but I'm also one of those people that's extremely cautious as well. I tiptoe that line of trying not to mess up. Like, I don't want to ever have to go through fire. I've made some mistakes, but like, I learn slowly, you know, if that makes a lot of sense. So it's not it's not the trajectory that I thought about when I was a kid, when I wanted to act. Like, I wanted to the moon, you know what I mean? I see Eddie Murphy on TV and I just want to be Eddie Murphy, you know, but, you know, I'm happy with my life, and I wouldn't really trade it for anything in the world, but it's slow. It is a very slow and gradual build because I'm tiptoeing, you know, and I think that's fair for a lot of actors, that they should probably learn by fire, you know?
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit, just like the gradualness of this, of like going from no one knowing you to like some people recognize you, is so different than what you think it is outside of this. I remember the first time people started recognizing me a little bit, I thought they wanted to fight, because I was saying shit, and I was like, what's wrong? I know you from, like, oh, okay. I almost beat up a fan. That is crazy. A little shit would be nice, but it is a lot of just like kind of learning yourself, learning your triggers, and learn what's right for you. Because I mean, I had a ton of anxiety going to those, like the Emmys, or going to these big events that I had never even thought about going to before getting into this. And but no one can really prepare you for that either. It is kind of like you have to kind of be in it to learn what you like and learn how to navigate through those things.
No, I think that's right. Ben, Pete, I mean, you're both, there's good and bad advice sort of given with regard to sort of how to behave and what the choices you make are when the iron is hot. You both are at these, you know, been at these points in your career where it seems like the choices are endless.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only sort of bucket list thing that I had from growing up, I started working in the theater when I was 9 years old in musical theater. And so my whole upbringing and my whole life was sort of pointed towards the experience that I ended up having at 23, which was doing Dear Evan Hansen and getting to originate a role, and, you know, the Tony Award and all that stuff. So like, there's a real sort of scariness in reaching that so quickly, because I sort of felt like, well, now is everybody done with me? And is that sort of like all I have to offer? And, you know, it's something that you think you'll continue to work towards. And obviously I feel incredibly fortunate that it happened in such a fantastic way. But I think I had to kind of embrace the freedom of the sort of opposite of what Ed was saying, which is sort of like the limitlessness of that, of sort of like, what do I feel like I really want to do? And how can I continue to challenge myself when sort of the only real sort of hardest pinnacle of what I could have imagined has already sort of been checked off. And so I think I've tried to allow my guide since then to be, you know, what are the things that make me really sort of authentically excited and allow me to work with people that I authentically want to be around. And I think there's a real desire to continue, especially when something's going very well, or when the sort of, like you're saying, when you're trying to strike when the iron is hot, to continue to sort of wedge yourself into these particular bubbles or spaces or boxes that we're all supposed to be heading towards, like to really want to be a Marvel superhero, or to like really want to be an action hero, or like to really want a big dramatic Oscar film, or like these things that like, you know, still exist, and that, you know, maybe I have a bit more of a foot in the door to, you know, auditioning and getting in for these things because of where I've been. But I don't think that necessarily means that those are really the things that in my heart I really want to do and that I really want to strive for, just because I'm supposed to want to strive for those things, you know. So I think it's been like riding that line of not being an idiot and, you know, taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, but also allowing myself to really, you know, make art that I'm excited about, and particularly get to make art where I'm playing queer characters, which is not something that comes around a lot. And, you know, as a queer person, I think we're in a place where everything is sort of like, much like a lot of the conversations that are happening right now, everything is swinging like really far in the opposite direction, which is obviously a fantastic place to start, where like everything is being really overly scrutinized, and every queer character and queer story we're investigating and thinking, why is this not a queer person playing this role, and who are the queer people telling the story? And I think that's a fantastic place to be, and that's obviously the direction that I'm glad that we're heading in. But I guess my hope and dream is that we will eventually find this equilibrium where sort of the number of people playing queer roles and making queer stories is, you know, there's room for, you know, all sort of places within the spectrum of sexuality, and it doesn't need to be this kind of hard and fast rule. But I do really appreciate, given the fact that there's been so much time where those stories haven't been told by the right people and performed by the right people, that we need to really kind of exaggerate to the other direction first. So I'm happy to be around while that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just mentioned you threw out a handful of things that you're supposed to want: the Marvel superhero, the sort of dramatic Oscar role. What are the things that you guys want? What is that sort of bucket list item? What's the sort of I've made it type of role? What does that look like for each of you?
I think Oscar winning dramatic Marvel superhero.
All of it.
I feel like that's out there.
That's what you want. Okay, I like that. I like just go big.
And that I'm right for that. That's what
For
everyone.
sure. Yes.
Can I say something on the
Please.
previous question?
Absolutely.
I, you know, being a celebrity is kind of like being the 5-year-old in a room with all the adults staring at you, and you can spin that kid out with all that energy coming that kid's way. You spin out. It's just, it's too hard to handle all that energy. I was very lucky early on, halfway through Cheers, that I started doing ocean advocacy, and I started an organization, and I did all of that. And I realized somehow, I don't know why, because it's that if you take that energy coming your way and you deflect it into something you care about, then I became okay with fame. I became okay with all that energy. And so I thank you for watching Cheers. I want you to come into the tent here and meet this biologist, this marine biologist. She has a lot to tell you. Became a use of my celebrity and that energy. And that served me well over the years.
Pete, you obviously have in the last couple of years, all of a sudden there are all of these sort of opportunities, projects, directors, etc., calling. And I am curious, are you able to enjoy it? Are you getting good advice, bad advice about what to do in this sort of moment in your career?
Yeah, I think I have a couple cool people around me that I think give me great advice, and it's a odd, enjoyable time for me. I'm really looking forward to getting to do films, because that's always been like my dream growing up. I think it's everybody's. So I'm just really excited to work and meet cool people and work with cool people. And if you get to work with your friends, that's kind of a bonus. I've been realizing that it's like it's like the most fun you could possibly have is when, you know, your homie's on set. So, yeah, I think just being level-headed and, you know, just, you know, taking advice and listening to it is where I'm at right now.
It seems like Saturday Night Live the sort of culture there has shifted in that you are able to sort of take on these other projects and still be a part of the show. I mean, Chris, obviously you're a wonderful example of that. But people seem to be taking time off and yet still get to be a part of this thing. And so it isn't just a sort of launch pad. Is that true? What does that feel like from the inside?
I think it's very true. I think that because there's so many places to get content that no singular thing is a real launch pad anymore. It's just a collectiveness of a bunch of good work, and then you find your people find you. But it is nice to have that. I mean, I came in with a couple of jobs already, so like I kind of wanted to keep that up. That was like kind of one of my things. I was like, yo, I gotta be able to do stand up, and I gotta be able to, you know, do a couple of things here and there in the summer at least. And it's been nice to be able to do both. I don't sleep now. Like I haven't slept since last year, but you know, I was broke till I was 30, man. So I don't need to sleep.
That's unhealthy, brother. Take a nap, man.
I'm gonna take a nap after this, but then we gotta get up and write. You know what I mean? It's just it's. I think this year is definitely different because of just how chaotic it's been with COVID and everything. But
and you were flying cross country.
Yeah,
to do Kenan.
We would fly in on Friday night and get there on Saturday morning, and then sleep, and then come into the studio and rehearse a couple times, and then do the show, and then fly out Sunday at 8 a.m. back, and then we shoot the whole week doing Kenan. We're hoping to not have to do that again, but it was very dope to like Pete was saying, to be working with your friends, because it wasn't work. I mean, me and Kenan's like my brother, so. And we were able to create this closeness with the entire cast that it was just kind of like playing all day, and then flying in, seeing Pete and them being able to play, and then flying back out. It was just like I was constantly hanging out with my friends on set, and I was tired, but it's like I was also felt real fortunate because there was a lot of people that were able to work, you know.
Kenan's been on that show for 18 seasons now. What's your sort of gut reaction at the prospect of doing that kind of run?
I would never do 18.
What about you, Pete?
And hats off, fam. Like that is.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm surprised I'm at 7. I'm ready to hang up the jersey. Kenan's like fucking Karl Malone out there.
Man, I swear, he's the god. He's a legend for it, man. And I think he can have that marker. I'm definitely having a good time with it. It's definitely better than the first few years. I mean, I had a good first year, and then with my second year was kind of wild. But I don't know how anybody did 18 years. It's a boot camp.
Tell us here on this panel. I think it's a good opportunity to tell us when you're going to quit.
Yeah. I want no one to know that I'm. Hard day. I have a date in mind. I'll just let y'all guess. We can go around the table and guess. But I think it's tremendous that someone stays that long on a show like this tough. I don't really have a year in mind for real, but I just know it ain't 18.
Fair enough. Hollywood's obviously a place that likes to sort of keep people in certain lanes. I don't know if any of you sort of have felt pigeonholed at any point in your careers, but I am curious, sort of what are the types of parts that come your way and you're just not this again?
Nerds, tech nerd, computer nerd, guy at the IT company, gay friend, nerdy gay friend, best friend.
Pothead, drug addict, crackhead.
Rapper, upcoming rapper,
nerdy drug dealer.
I've always wanted, like, I get nerdy all the time, and I've always wanted to be. We were talking about Marvel characters earlier, and I've always wanted to be in a superhero movie. And then I get this call about auditioning for.
Hey, you did Bloodsport, man. You were great in that.
Thank you, man. So that's what I'm saying. It was Bloodshot with Vin Diesel, and I was like, man, it's my opportunity. And I read the script, and it's a fucking nerd. It was a nerd in a superhero movie, and I was like, shit, man.
It's one step closer, though.
You get closer and closer, but the pandemic started and no one saw it. That was the thing. We were the last.
I
movie
saw
in
it, man.
theaters.
I saw it the day it came out. It was great.
It was clear, bro. You did a good job, cuz.
And you had a different accent and shit.
Yeah, I had a British accent.
And you looked like you had to eat a lot of ramen too. I was like, Lamorne's eating the shit out of that ramen.
yeah, that's all they had on set. Vin runs a tight ship. He took all the budget. So.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, I get a lot of offers to be sort of like wound up jerks or or not jerks, just sort of like douchey guys who mean well, which is sort of a thing, I guess, that Andy Bernard was. And I have had I love Andy Bernard. I loved playing that part so much, but yeah, I'm sort of looking for different lanes at this point.
I think that's fair. What about you, Ted?
Alpha males scare the crap out of me. So anything where I'm supposed to be alpha or manly or masculine, either I'm really bad at it, which is true, or it really bores the crap out of me, which is also true.
All right, we're going to end with, I wish Hollywood would cast me as. We know Lamorne's. He's going superhero.
Yeah.
A very cool superhero, I should say.
Extremely cool.
I just want to be the fifth or sixth guy in like a lot of movies. You know what I mean? I just want to be that guy. I want to like Buscemi my career real hard.
I really want to be like a black John Wick, or like same hair, just black, in a Marvel movie or in a horror movie. I want to really be in a horror movie and just be the killer.
I also want to be a black John Wick.
Yeah. A movie coming on.
Ted?
I want to be cast in something with my wife, Mary, and shoot it next door. It's all about location now.
Sandler way.
I feel like that's very achievable.
You will have a pitch on your desk tomorrow morning.
Correct.
The next door location is the most important. Second most important. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Ted wants to be John Wick. I think we all want to be
just
John
a
Wick.
white John Wick.
Yeah.
any ethnic background John Wick will
Yeah.
fine.
I want to play an Asian schoolgirl. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Yeah, me too.
Ben?
I have a lot of friends that I like to make stuff with. My best friend Beanie Feldstein and my friend Molly Gordon and my boyfriend Noah Galvin, and we'd love to make something together, preferably some sort of comedy film. That would be my dream, to make something with my people, for sure.
Molly, as in Brian and Jesse Molly?
Yes, she's been my best friend since I was like 4 years old.
Give her my love.
I will. She's coming over right after this. I will.
That's crazy. I love that.
Are you actually actively going to make something?
We are, yeah. We are developing something. We made this short called Theater Camp that's on YouTube. You can find it, about basically very abusive theater teachers based on the ones that we grew up with. And so we're adapting that into a feature, which will be really fun.
And Ed, I wish Hollywood would cast me as.
I don't know how realistic this is, but I've always wanted to be like a martini being like debonair super villain and or hero, like a James Bond. Come on, Hollywood.
Come on, man.
Come on, Hollywood, get it together, Hollywood.
How is this not James Bond?
Well, you look
Do one for the boys, Hollywood.
you look good right now, man, with your special futuristic camera.
Honestly, you have a James Bond camera right now.
It's all about the camera. If you use the right camera, anybody can be James Bond.
That shit is fucked up, man.
I think we should make a movie called The Roundtable. And
Yeah.
it's us. It's us. We're the cast.
Absolutely. I'm down.
I'm down. Son.
I don't want anything to do with it.
Perfect. Perfect. That'll be the first line.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being part of this. I've enjoyed
you.
all of your company, and I
Yeah.
hope to actually do this in person one of these days. But in the meantime, great camera, Ed. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure being with
Lacey,
you all.
Lacey, good job. Nice to
Great
meet
job.
you all.
Yeah.